We are going to talk about interim management and the international level of interim management, especially. And our presenter today is Danny Hodgson from Australia. The way we are going to do is Danny will do the presentation. Then our four partners, Vivek from India, Sam from Middle East, and Simon Wen from China will talk about their specific parts of their part of the world. Questions you can ask through the chat, and at the end of the presentations I will answer some of the questions, and some of the questions will be answered by our local partners. Please put yourself on mute, and I will hand over the presentation to Danny Hodgson, who is our host today.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much indeed for the kind introduction, Doug. As you've explained already, the format for today is to give you a quick introduction to our wonderful international alliance and to talk to you about who interim executives are and some of the superpowers that they have and how they can help and support business. We're going to hear specifically from my colleagues in China, India, and the Middle East. And we're going to talk a bit about the benefits of moving talent between these countries and some of the dynamics of the individual marketplaces. Who are net importers, who are exporters of interim talent, and where has it worked well across those different countries? So, just to give you a little bit of an introduction to the to SMW, it is very difficult to recruit interim managers in a country outside of your own. You don't understand the culture, you don't have the candidates, you don't know the tax implications and the local legislation. So that, on that premise, was how the SMW group was founded, initially in Europe, and it's spread out to other parts of the globe. So we now have 40 partners who are operating in 25 countries, and we work really collaboratively together. You can see the little photo there. We meet twice a year, and it is something of a meeting of the United Nations. And to let you into a secret, we actually all get on really well. We like and trust each other, and that forms the basis of some really strong international collaboration that we have between all of us. We have access between all of the various partner firms to over 175,000 interim managers. And we work a model of having a local contact in your country, plus collaborating and working with the contacts in the country in which you're about to hire. We really pride ourselves on taking what we feel to be a trusted, team-based approach to international hiring. So just looking a little bit at the map. As I've explained before, interim really started in Europe. In fact, I think it was first a thing in the Netherlands, to be fair, and has spread globally. I think the thing you need to understand is there is a massive disparity in the maturity of individual market areas. So in Europe, for example, interim is absolutely a career option in its own right. But in other parts of the globe, it's very much about working with clients to understand who interims are and how it works. And I've certainly found here in Australia that success breeds success. So a lot of our business here has been derived from organizations using it once, having a fantastic outcome, and using it again, or being linked to other countries where they have access to this talent. At SMW, we work really hard to provide you as potential clients or interim executives with local knowledge and local understanding. And that can be quite granular and can be absolutely crucial to the hiring process. I was working recently with Gregoire, our French partner, around hiring an interim executive into a business in Melbourne. And then just having to explain to the French company that actually it's hard enough to get somebody who lives in the centre of Melbourne to work in a regional area that it is to get somebody to drive the long distance from Sydney. And also just talking to them about the labour licenses that you need and some of the local legislation. And that just derived a really good outcome for that organisation. So if I talk a little bit more about who are interim executives. Fundamental to the proposition around interim executive is that we deliver people who are typically a little bit overqualified for the work that they do. So they arrive with our clients with a track record of success, and they're able to demonstrate that at that first meeting. What does that mean? Well, firstly, it mitigates the risk. If you can deliver somebody who can demonstrate how they've delivered for other organizations in a variety of circumstances, it both mitigates the risk and also it absolutely ensures success. I have detailed, there's a couple of other comments here on who interims are. They're always extremely experienced individuals. They typically stick around for between 6 and 8 months. So long enough to have an impact, but not so long that they should be permanent as well. And it's really important to note that they are hands-on individuals. Interim managers are not management consultants. They do not arrive and make a shiny report and leave it with you to action as you see fit or gather dust on a shelf somewhere. They get in there, they lead, they support, they coach, they mentor, and they direct organizations. They work on the inside, they lead and manage, and they are absolutely active executives. Sometimes they bring their own deep subject matter expertise to the organizations, but they're always top flight C-suite executives. So, how can interims help businesses? Interim is really different to contract labor hire. It's not about hiring somebody to assist in producing a complex spreadsheet for you or an extra human resources business partner to come and support you. It's not a temporary, just another temporary hire. When we work with our clients, it is absolutely mission critical that they're successful. So the success of the business is at stake. Putting it more bluntly, the CEO or the board director or the chair of the organization's job or reputation is on the line if the interim doesn't succeed, which is why it is such a critical hire, and in turn, why it is such a valuable hire to businesses. So how can they help businesses? Well, they can provide interim leadership so they can step in and they can run the show. They can deliver a major project or initiative for your organization. They can deliver a turnaround of an organization or a site or a plan. Or, as I'm working with a couple of organizations here in Australia, they can manage acquisitions or carve-outs by institutional investment groups. Some of them do indeed specialize in this new category of business transformation. And again, as I described earlier, they come with a track record of success of being able to deliver that for organizations. It's common in some other areas, probably less so in Australia, but I know in other parts of the globe, to bring in interims to perhaps close down a plant or a division. And I'm well aware of that happening in the Southeast Asian region. So, what makes a successful interim executive? There are two things that are absolutely critical, and I assess them every time I meet an interim manager. The first thing is experience, and that's their skill, and that's their sector experience. And the second, and equally most important thing, is their mentality, which is absolutely crucial. And for many, is where the value of an interim is derived. So look, they're experienced. You have to have at least 20 years under your belt to have that track record of success for clients. Yes, they're flexible. I would say around about 80, even 90% of the people that I work with will relocate to another place to deliver an assignment for a client, and they have a high level of global mobility. When it comes to the mentality piece around this, and this is really important, these individuals, these men and women, are able to leave their ego at the door. Yes, they had fantastic jobs and they've made significant achievements and can demonstrate this. Fantastic. But what they don't do is arrive in your business or organization and tell you how fantastic they were when they were at Coca-Cola or at Unilever or at GE Capital. Sure, they use that experience to your benefit, but they leave the ego at the door. They focus clearly and they focus squarely on the problems that you need delivered as an organization, and they weave that experience in. So and sometimes it's quite a hard thing to assess when we're looking at who might be a good interim manager, because somebody who's just stepped out of a very successful permanent career as a CEO, maybe they're used to their having the corner office and having a team around them and having somebody organize their travel and organize their laptops. Well, as an interim, I've had plenty of situations where the interim CEO or CFO shows up at the premises or the business and they've got their own laptop and they're working in a corridor and they've got to find everything out for themselves. And they have to be humble in some circumstances. They do operate at different levels, and it's part of that value proposition around being overqualified for the job. So I work with some brilliant chief executive officers who used to be chief financial officers, who are more than happy to go in and be an interim chief financial officer for an organization. But because they leave their ego at the door, they're not threatening the CEO of that particular organization. They're adding the value of their own experience. And within that, they often bring their own networks. And this can be quite subtle. This isn't just about bringing in friends and family that they've worked with previously. It's about bringing in vendors that they know that can add value, bringing in legal contacts that they have, bringing in industry advocates that they know. It can, in some circumstances, be actually bringing new business to the organization through their own networks. The final piece around that is around the delivery of subject matter experts. And there are people out there who really focus in a particular area, and they're absolutely okay to lend that experience to an organization or business for the short term and then recycle themselves into other places. And it's our job at SMW, at Senior Management Worldwide, based on all the decades of experience that we have between ourselves, to really assess those things. But above all, it is their experience absolutely allied to that ability and that mentality. So we're going to look a little bit, as we promised earlier, country by country. And this is the exciting part, because you get to hear from the real experts in other parts of the world, and they will explain the dynamics of their marketplaces and some of the things that perhaps you need to know or need to think about. Please don't forget, as Dirk said at the beginning of the meeting, you've got plenty of opportunity to ask questions about what it is like to work in those individual countries, or what opportunities there may be in those markets first. So I'm going to kindly hand over to my esteemed colleague, Simon Wan, in China.
Thank you. Thank you. What I'd like to highlight in China is being one of the largest industrial country in Asia or in the world. So most of the interim business that we see are investors, the headquarters are from Europe, that are requiring interim executives mostly in finance and operation management. And what we see in the last 18 months or so, a lot of those factories are also applying the system of China +1. So they are expanding the operation from China into also Vietnam or into Thailand, or sometimes even to the Mexico. So what the market require is someone that has China experience and yes, also have cultural understanding in other operations that the company is expanding. So today, most of the candidates that we see already left China because of the 3 years of COVID, but many are returning. But today's market is most Europeans, most interim managers are from Europe. And the second kind of interim market that we look at now is a lot of Chinese companies are beginning to grow overseas. They always look for someone that has China experience and can be their local person in a country that they are expanding. So they might be looking for long-term kind of assignments or interim to for 3 to 6 months to assess the market. So it is still a small market in China, but it's growing very fast. And today, when I look at the visa situation of coming to China, is now a little bit easier than the last 3 years. We feel there's a lot more opportunity for a candidate to look at China. But one of the key criteria is you have to have already China-based experience, because without the China-based experience, it would be difficult for you to acquire an assignment. Also, for foreigners working in China, there's also an age issue. When you are over 60, it's very difficult to get a working visa working in China, because those are the two things I like to remind interim executives that those are the two things that you need to bear in mind. Thank you. Those are my update. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Simon, and thank you, Danny. Coming to India, as everyone knows, India's economy is booming. We are going to be the third largest economy in the world in the next few years. There's a lot happening in India. There's a population of 1.4 billion, of which 50% is under 25 years of age. Industry is growing, services are growing, so there's huge demand of people and there is huge demand of interims. So I must say that interim is a new concept in India, but working really well and spreading really very fast in all major industries. People who know about India know that the employment laws are a little difficult, and if you have full-time employees, there are challenges. So interim is a great solution for international companies and multinational companies. With the number of people, India's population is mostly English speaking, and I see a lot is happening in technology. So there's huge number of candidates who are going as interims working in other parts of the world. So what I'd like to specify, I see a lot of clients and candidates attending this webinar, and I also saw a couple of questions. So yes, if you know, there's huge potential for foreign clients to look at Indian candidates to work in their country. There's huge candidate for Indian clients to have interim candidates to work across the globe, and a lot is happening. So we see major growth happened in the past 5 years in every industry, may it be manufacturing, engineering, services. Interims are used across the country and across the globe, and there's huge demand for Indian interim candidates for various reasons, which I explained earlier, in terms of employment laws, in terms of expertise, in terms of skill sets that they bring in terms of English language skills, which is really important. And some countries have the handicap of not having the English language, but now I think the world speaks English. So India is booming with a capital B, and the interim world is increasing, and I see a huge scope for clients and candidates to participate in this interim world. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. This is Sam from the Middle East. And Danny, thanks very much for your insight. It's great to hear from our partners all around the world, Vivek and Simon. The best way to describe interim in the Middle East is that it's growing. It's been fueled by a post-COVID transformation, a lot of government investment into diversifying the economy and providing opportunities for their nationals and job security. I would say in most demand, we're looking for a lot of interims that can provide the hands-on strategic implementation, not just design, it's also the delivery of that at a national level and across portfolios. A lot of requirements for digital transformation talent as well, and some very specific industry subject matter experts. Beyond just energy and industrial, which are also booming in this part of the world, we're looking for niche requirements like sports experts, music academies, cultural tourism. A lot of the governments are investing in this space. I would say that what's important for the Middle East in terms of interim talent is that we rely heavily on our IMW global network. The Middle East is very open to global talent that doesn't necessarily have previous Middle East experience for very specific roles and opportunities. So I do encourage, if there are any interim management candidates on the call today, I would highly recommend that you introduce yourself to your interim partners in each of your countries. We're also developing regional interim talent in the Middle East. There's a lot of people that have been in this part of the world for a long time, and they can support really driving that GCC national development, transferring knowledge, building capability, adding their senior executive expertise into a very young leadership and driving a lot of initiatives from an interim perspective. This part of the world provides a nice platform to actually register yourself by having your own business and own license. It's obviously a tax-free platform, and Dubai has gone so far as having virtual free zones that you can establish yourself and not necessarily live in the country as well. So really interesting, a lot of new interim opportunities across the region, very impactful, very challenging, that require a lot of global or regional expertise to add value. Thank you.
So just back to me to make a few extra comments on the Australian market specifically. Most of the demand comes from the corporate centre. So the key pillars of the interim market in Australia are top flight finance, so CFOs, IT, CIOs, HR directors and people managers, chief people officers, general counsels, sort of company secretaries. It's that sort of corporate centre where I have the almost everyday requirements from clients. Australia historically has probably been a net exporter of interim talent, mainly to Europe and the US. So I often find myself, and this is true for anybody on the call who's looking to relocate, linking individuals to our partner firms across the SMW group. Sometimes there are individuals that will say, I have a UK passport, I want to do interim work in the UK. But often I'll have people who'll say, oh, I've just been seconded to our Germany office or Paris or wherever it might be. I think I need to hire some people. Can you help me out? Who can you connect me to? Because of what I said earlier about us actually knowing each other at a sort of personal level, it's much easier to make a personal introduction. We do see inbound talent, but they are mostly returning Australians. And as I'm sure many of you will know and probably will have suffered, Australia was on a national lockdown for a long period of time. Some people did the painful 14 days in isolation. A lot of people waited it out and they've returned back and they're now looking for interim work with us. Just finally at my end, probably most of the international alliance work I do is with a partner who will be in the corporate head office, as I had recently in Sweden, and they will say, "Oh, we need an interim CFO for a company we've just bought in Australia," and we'll be linked that way. So there is quite a bit of work for in-country CEOs and CFOs, typically for foreign-owned businesses. I'm conscious to allow plenty of time for questions. I think before I do that and revert back to Dirk, I just want to talk a little bit about, the so what factor in all of this. You might be thinking to yourself, all right, okay, how can I help? What can I do? As Sam has mentioned previously, if you're interested in working in one of our partner locations, talk to me or talk to the partner firm and look at the website, find that organization and talk to them. If you're looking to hire an interim yourself, then the way we work is brief the local provider in your country, who will then link you to the relevant person in that partner firm. And again, I would encourage you to think about the problem. And this is however you might hire an interim manager. Please don't just give us the permanent job description. Think about what you need to achieve in that business over the next 6 to 8 months. What are those mission critical outcomes? It allows us to brief those interims far more effectively and can deliver you the best outcome. So we own and manage that sourcing process. The turnaround times, well, sometimes it varies between different countries and the maturity of those countries. It can be as little as hours. It certainly can be hours in Australia. In other parts, it can be days. What it isn't is weeks and weeks. It's a quick outcome for when you have a problem. So my final point would be, I'd encourage you to talk to myself or anybody in the relevant partner firms around the specifics of those local marketplaces. Over to you, Dirk.
Thank you very much, Danny. That was a very interesting presentation. Thank you very much, Simon, Vivek, and Sam, for the insights of their countries. We have 2 questions. One has already been answered in the chat by Simon Wen. But maybe it is good, Simon, that you that you answer it for the general public also. And we have one question that is as well for China as for India. The first question about China was if it is important to know the Chinese local language. And the second question for China and for India, and I would like as well Vivek as Simon to answer them. What specific needs are there, and what specific skills are Chinese and Indian companies looking for, and which sectors in both countries are in high demand? And this is asked by somebody from Australia. So please, Simon and Vivek, if you could answer these questions.
Thank you. As I explained on the chat, it is important to understand the culture and working conditions in China. And most of the demand comes from factories or sourcing offices that need a quick fix in personnel or in business model. So to me, language is good to have, but not a must in today's China market. Vivek, going to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Simon. So the question on what skill sets do you need for India or specifically for an interim, I think Danny has explained this in great detail for all interims. So I reiterate the fact that there's huge demand for interims in India across all industries. So whether it be manufacturing, engineering, aviation, power, gas, services, there's huge demand in every aspect. So If you're a candidate in India, please reach out to me. If you're a client who's looking for interims across the globe, please reach out to the respective partners in the respective country. I reiterate that there's huge demand in every industry vertical, and we have clients. The SMW Group and its partners have clients across all industries, and we have candidates across all industries. So we are not industry agnostic. We work across the globe, across all industries, and candidates in any industry are welcome. And I'm sure you reach out to us and we will have opportunities for you. Back to you, Danny.
Well, thank you very much, Vivek. We have a question for Sam. If you could please comment on the specific interim needs in the Middle East.
Yeah, sure. Look, it's very diverse. As I say, when governments are investing in national diversification programs, it transverses multiple sectors as niche and interesting, but also as broad and strong in the Middle East. So we still do interims in energy and industrial and financial services as the traditional market players. But what's even more interesting, with the high oil prices and the sovereign wealth funds being quite ambitious with their investment portfolios, we're seeing a lot of new industries, a lot of investment within innovation, high tech, deep tech, that startup, scale-up innovation environment. So it's hard to give you a specific answer, but all I can talk about is not just the diversity of the across sectors for interims here in the Middle East, but also, you know, a really strong push for diversity in terms of people. We're very open and very tolerant, and they've changed a lot of the visa regulations to make it a lot easier for interims that are globally mobile to be based here and operate effectively as an interim manager in the Middle East.
Okay, the question for Sam was later on related especially to infrastructure projects. And maybe you could tell something about that.
Of course, major infrastructure projects. Obviously, Saudi has been, they haven't just launched mega projects, they've launched giga projects. There's a lot of infrastructure funds that have established themselves in the region in joint venture partnerships with BlackRock, with UK specific organizations, which gives them a lot of substance to then deploy capital across a lot of really new and interesting infrastructure projects. So it's a very hot market, and there's a lot happening at a giga project scale and at a startup project opportunity, which provides a lot of scope for an interim to add value.
Thank you. Then we have a question for Danny, which is how important is industry-specific experience for corporate roles in Australia?
Thanks. It's really important because clients absolutely require it. Part of my job here is educating clients around the diversity of experience they can benefit from. I often find that organizations will ring up or have a briefing meeting and they'll say, we are a bank and we really want somebody from another bank. Now, it is difficult to get them to consider somebody completely different, but what we try and do is look for what I would call industry adjacency. So I'll talk to that client and I'll say, okay, what about somebody from another regulated financial services sector, like the superannuation fund or financial products or asset management and wealth management? And typically the client will go, yeah, absolutely. I'd consider somebody from a related sector. It's very rare, though, that we'll get a client that will want somebody who has completely unrelated sector experience. So what that means for you as the person that's looking for a piece of work is expect to find that you're going to be trading either directly on your own sector experience or some sort of adjacent sector experience. And it's probably an aspiration to do something radically different. I saw another question around the corporate skew in interim roles and whether or not we're seeing marketing and digital remits. Sometimes is the answer to that question. Because the market in Australia is relatively immature, the easy prospect for the client is a listed company that doesn't have a CFO or a CEO or a general counsel. It has to put somebody in. So that's why it's dominated by some of those other areas. I sometimes find with interim assignments that are a little bit more customer facing, like marketing and digital, particularly marketing, and sales, that there's a real reluctance, certainly on the part of Australian clients, to engage anybody on an interim basis because they worry about that person building relationships and then leaving. Obviously, in a back office, finance, tech role, it's less of a concern.
And there is another question, Danny, about has recent controversy in Australia about government departments' over-reliance on external consultants affect interim opportunities in government?
Oh, that's a great question, and absolutely it has. From a conversation I even had this morning with an organisation, there has been a huge scandal here in Australia around one of the major global consultancy firms that begins with P, and there is an absolute aversion to engaging major consultancy firms, and the Commonwealth government, the federal government here in Australia, has actually created a framework whereby they can, for the first time ever, they can bring interim managers into those Commonwealth departments as opposed to hiring a consultancy firm to deliver that. And I'm off in a couple of weeks to Canberra to go and talk to the Department of Human Services on that absolute topic. They're really interested in engaging interims instead.
Okay, are there some more questions, maybe? Because we are still open, we are here. Here you can ask everything you want. Then there's something I would like to add about the industry experience. I'm a partner for IMW in Spain, and a couple of years ago we had I first go on with the next question, and then I talk about industry experience. Question, and that is for everybody: is it only C-suite that are hired as interims? I would say it is not only C-suite, but also people who work with C-suite. It all depends on the size of the company. And of course, a multi-billion global company doesn't need somebody who is at the extreme top of the company. But yes, they are working with C-suite. They are on this local C-suite level, etc. So if you are not at the absolute top of the multinational company, yes, at the top of the local organization or the regional organization. And then there's from Sydney one question, which is: which countries do most shared working at IMW? Well, we have a lot of shared working within Europe, because Europe is relatively small. We have a lot of shared working between the US and Europe. And then we also have from Europe for companies in India, China, and Australia. And once in a while also for, just the other way around. Is there some more questions about this? Okay, then I would like to add a little bit about the industry experience. In the US, a couple of years ago, they did a very interesting survey, and they took 600 people with industry experience who were contracted from outside, and 600 people without industry experience. And they wanted to know what is better, who is more successful, the people with or without industry experience. They said, with those two groups of 600 people, they said success or failure is to be in the group after 1 year still. And when they looked after 1 year, then surprise, surprise, 34% of the people who had industry experience, who came from the industry, were still in the group, and 67% of the people who had no experience in the industry were still in the group. So that's a real significant difference. So the question was why? Well, in the first place, if you are looking for somebody in a much bigger pool of talent, which includes not only your own industry, but also other industries, then you will find, of course, much more very good people than when you look only within. And that was one of the main reasons. But also the way somebody who has industry experience goes in to the company, usually or many times, because of this failure, they wanted to make a copy of their previous company in the company they are, and that just didn't work. I can put at the SMW website our article, and then you can read it. Then we have some more questions. Do interim assignments involve non-compete requirements? And the other one is, what is the ratio of interim becoming permanent? Is there a trend or a long-term try before you buy? Well, our experience is that 12 to 13% of the people who are interim become permanent. And if you, and there is another trend, try before you buy. People really know what is interim and what is permanent. And if you think that starting as an interim manager is a good way to get into a company on a permanent basis, then I think you are on the wrong path. Yeah, I don't recommend it to you. We have seen it, that it happens very few times. Yeah, if 85 to 90% doesn't stay in the company, then this is not the way to try to become a permanent employee in the company. Interim assignments involve non-compete requirements. Well, no, we don't see them. What we do see, and we sign a lot of them, is that you have to protect the information that you handle. Yeah, so no, a non-compete hardly ever occurs, but it is not that you are then out of your out of that sector. Why? Because you bring in also many times experience and knowledge from other places. Yeah. More questions, please. Disclosure agreements, yes, we sign. This is another question. Yeah, and non-disclosure agreements, I think that is a very normal thing to sign nowadays because you look into the kitchen of the company many times. Okay, we are now almost at 50 minutes into the webinar. Are some people who would like to add something? Simon, Vivek, Sam, Danny?
No, Dirk, we're good, thank you.
No, all good. I think you've heard enough from me.
Okay.
Dirk,
yes.
I was in the last month in the US for meetings, and I think for executives, we call it the Uber style of executive. It's not a fad. It would remain to be important because to me, if you are an executive, interim or would be a way for your future no matter when. So get prepared for yourself to be able to hands-on and able to problem solve rather than sit at the corner office is what we recommend to them, you know.
Yes. Yeah. We have one question more. Do SMW prefer interims who are keen to keep doing multiple interim gigs versus people seeking permanent role while taking interim as a stopgap? Well, you know, this is very difficult to define. We, of course, ask questions if people are really interested in interim, but we see people doing long-term interim, going from assignment to assignment, but we also see people doing several assignments and then start with a permanent job again. Yeah, this is something we cannot, we cannot stop or we cannot intervene. We cannot do anything about it. And I don't think it's also a bad idea. People manage their own careers. And if you want to do for a while interim assignments, fine. And if then they go to a permanent job, that is also fine. We hope they are very successful. The only thing we ask them is, once you start an interim assignment, don't stop it at half of the assignment to take a permanent job, because then you're out of interim forever. Yeah. A question for Danny. Should an interim CV be styled different to a professional CV?
In a word, yes. Everybody has an opinion on CVs. So you talk to a different person, they'll give you a different view. For what it's worth, in my opinion, it should be different. And I think an interim CV should state clearly who you are and the product offering that you have for clients. So it's great to talk about your achievements and all the companies you've worked for, but what the client is most interested in is how is that going to be distilled into the problems that you can solve for that organization. So what typically looks good is, how to get hold of you on the front page of your CV, but also a clear statement of the service or product offering that you have as an individual, and that will be unique. And it can change depending on, who the CV is going in front of, and then what you have done in reverse chronological order. And it really should be in such a way that the client should be able to look and judge your suitability based just on the first page of the CV.
Okay, well, I can add to that, because I always recommend people to make their USP, a unique selling proposition, and to do it through 3 questions. What have you done? So what is your experience? What are you very good at? And what do you really like? Yeah, those 3 questions are very easy to answer. And people are not looking for somebody, what he has done in 50 years, in 25 years. They are looking for somebody who is very good at a specific issue, which is usually the type of issue they are trying to solve in their company. So yes, I think it's also very important that you adapt your CV to interim and that you give a very clear idea of what you are very good at and what you stand out that you can deliver to companies, and in which way you can help companies. Okay, well, thank you very much. If there are some questions still, well, if there are no questions anymore, then I would like to thank very much Simon. I would like to thank Vivek and Sam, and especially Danny for his presentation. Okay, we have somebody who wants to, who has his hand up. If you have a question, please. Okay, no. Well, thank you very much for your participation. And we hope to stay in contact with you. If you want to contact with one of our local partners, You can find their email address and everything at the SMW website. Have a nice day, have a nice evening, and I hope we will see you soon when we do another webinar. Thank you very much for everything.